Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the all-new Cryptids and Monsters of the Week video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one from the cryptids.wikia.com page. Yet again, just based on whatever randomly lands on when it comes to their random page feature. This one is a fascinating entry because apparently it has to do with a monster that is literally found underneath a bridge. And I was able to find, I think, the exact location for it. You know me, you know how much I love going to exact spots and then trying to see what's encountered there. But not only that, it's not only featured at that location, but by pure coincidence, other things having the same name apparently have this creature there too. I'll explain that more here in a minute, and hopefully I'll be able to make some sense out of it. But in this case, it has to do with a very unique looking creature. You're looking at it now. It goes by several names, but I'll go ahead and I'll call it by its main moniker, which is the Riverside Bridge Monster. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the interesting info associated with this unique cryptid. So what is this Riverside Bridge Monster? Well, if you believe its first sighting, and I mentioned just the first sighting because this is at least the first documented one, who knows how long this has been going on even before that, but at least this is the first time someone actually talked about it. This occurred back on November 8th, 1958, there near Riverside, California. And specifically, if you wanted to go again to that exact spot I was mentioning, you have to go to an area where North Main Street crosses the Santa Ana River. And apparently, if you go there even today, that it's been modified, different at least from what occurred over 50 plus years ago. But at least you'll have a good chance of running into the creature. More on that too here in a minute. But this is what occurred on that fateful night. So on November 8th, 1958, there was a gentleman by the name of Charles Wetzel. Go ahead and please keep that name in mind, that last name Wetzel, because that's part of the weird theme that I'll follow up on towards the end of the video. But yes, this guy Charles Wetzel was getting home late at night. I don't know if he was coming home from a date or maybe coming home from work or school, whatever was the case. There he was driving home, and he came across an area where North Main Street went underneath or towards Santa Ana River. What I mean is underneath, like it exited the main street and then probably went towards some kind of access or frontage road. But as he did so, he found that because of the rain, because it was heavily raining towards that location, the river that was nearby was overflowing. And so it went onto the road, that T section that he was about to turn left into. So again, he was heading straight down the road. He came to a T, and then at that T point, he was going to turn, presumably left in this case, because that's apparently where he was heading home. But the road again was wet in front of him. It was pretty much overflowing, and so he slowed down just naturally, just to make sure that he wanted to gauge and see how deep that water was. You always see those videos out there every single year whenever there's any kind of large amounts of rain happening somewhere, where someone will get that thing happen. They'll have their car or truck stuck in the water because they did not gauge how deep that water was. It's very much an illusion whenever you think it's not too deep, but it is. So there he was slowing down, and then all of a sudden he noticed something. First, his radio signal, almost in a weird Silent Hill type way, started to go staticky. I love that stuff when I was reading that information, because if that ever happens to me, first thing that occurs is I'm thinking, is there going to be fog that's somewhere in the nearby area because of the world of Silent Hill? But yes, his radio was completely drowned out by static, and then that's when he saw what he described as something leap out from the nearby underbrush by that T section. So here's how he stated it, or at least how it looked like. It was something that had this round, scarecrowish head. So when I was picturing that, I was picturing it more along the lines of an elongated head. You know how scarecrows, the way they're built, or even the Batman villain as well, the way he looks like, they always have like these long, skinny heads tied to them. So that's how I imagine here. He said that it looked like something straight out of Halloween in terms of that head. Definitely wasn't human because it had these really, really long arms that were tied to it. In fact, when I was reading this information, I kept wondering if this was more along the lines of like the Black Stick Men, something like that, where it was just freakishly long arms that are obviously longer than any human would have, but there it was as far as this unique monster, and it had those appendages. But yes, these arms, it was attached to a body that was also pretty large as well, very thin too. Even though the face was hardly seen, there were these eyes that looked like it was creating its own light source. It was very fluorescent. And then on top of that, there were no ears, but he did see some form of a mouth, a protuberant mouth. If anyone knows what that means, let me know. But that's essentially how he described it there. And so this thing almost or basically ambushed him. Like it came out straight from the underbrush, landed nearby his car, and there was the standoff. Him seeing this, and then whatever this thing was, obviously seeing him. The last thing he noted in that split second of visually and taking in everything there. I imagine it was just a few seconds, but it's that kind of world where suddenly a few seconds turns into a few years. He saw that this body, quote unquote body, had this scaly look to it, almost like they were leaves that were coming onto each other, so layered onto each other. And so there it was, staring back at him. And so before he realized that there was going to be nothing done, all of a sudden this thing started clawing straight to him. And the way he described it was, even though it was a small distance away, its very long arms pretty much went up straight to his windshield. It clearly had some kind of malintent. It was not going to do anything good within that moment. And so in those split seconds, this guy Charles Wetzel had a .22 caliber pistol underneath his seat. He wanted to grab it. He wanted to open up his window. He wanted to shoot, in fact, through his windshield as well, just because it was fight or flight. As far as this thing landing in front of him, it definitely scared him, and he was ready to use his gun. But then he changed his mind. He realized if he shatters anything involving his windows or his windshield, it definitely was the last front when it came to him being separated from whatever this creature was. So instead, he did the next best thing, in his mind at least. He decided to floor it. He went straight down onto his accelerator, and then this thing got hit by his car. It got hit hard too. The way he described it was, it tumbled straight from the hood up to the top of the roof, and then straight from the hood up to the bottom, because he basically ran it over. So instead of going on top of the hood, it just happened to go straight under his car. And when he did so, he definitely felt that he hit it. Like, in other words, he ran it over. It was those familiar thumps that you see in terms of TV shows and movies whenever someone gets run over. That's essentially what was happened here. He didn't care about it. He just knew that this thing, whatever it was not going to do anything good to him. And so he ran it over, and he heard, apparently it's thing, like whatever its hands were, had these claws to it. He heard it scraping right underneath it. He heard this screaming as well, this unearthly screaming coming from this monster. And then the last thing he heard from it was this gurgling. He never really looked behind because the way I was reading the information, it's not like he stopped, let alone turned around to just see what was behind him. All he did was he floored it. After that point, once the monster was cleared from the undercarriage of his car, he was gone. He went, in fact, to the nearest Riverside police station to let them know exactly what occurred. I imagine at this point, too, the Riverside police station were thinking that they were dealing with somebody drunk, maybe high, something along those lines, but they wanted to make sure that everything was still looked at, because who knows, it may have been something else, like in terms of a prank. At least maybe they were thinking along those lines too. So they went over to his car, and then that's when they saw that there were these definite scratches, not just on the hood, but also on the windshield. And then when he told them about what happened underneath his car, they looked there and they saw all these smears underneath that car too. When I was reading this info, it reminded me of, anyone seen that fantastic Twilight Zone episode involving that monster that was on the airplane with William Shatner, Captain Kirk, in other words? Nobody believed him, and then there was this damage that was looked at on the wing of the plane, also on the movie too, which had a really good segment featuring that too. Well, all of a sudden, these officers here, no doubt they took him seriously. this guy Wetzel, because of what they saw happen to his car. And so they went around that location, but they didn't see anything as far as what he described. Like they went straight to that bridge area, but they didn't do so. They even went the next night, in fact, and then tried to see, but they found nothing as far as that. But if you wanted to hear about another encounter, it's this. So this guy Wetzel, remember I was mentioning to recall his last name? Apparently there was another Wetzel in another location somewhere in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, that also encountered this unique creature, down to essentially how it looked like and how it acted. So whatever this creature was, who knows if it specifically targeted Wetzel himself or thought that it was going to target other Wetzels seeking the same target but mistaking a case of mistaken identity. That's how I read the information when I was going over this. Something apparently was targeting all the Charles Wetzels within the United States, and whatever this thing was, it was definitely finding them at the right moment, but maybe it was just trying to seek the one Charles Wetzel that was its true target. But crazy stuff when it comes to that, because that almost also showcases intelligence, specific tracking purposes. When it comes to that, it's phenomenal. Like when I was reading this information, it just went to a whole other level. But otherwise, that's pretty much it with regards to this creature, whatever this was, this Riverside Bridge monster. It was encountered there at that location in Riverside, California. But again, that's the only time that it's done so. Here, in fact, are some of the areas surrounding that location. I wouldn't advise going to see like this spot. It doesn't look like it's a safe place considering all the graffiti that's there, and then just considering how dilapidated it looks still. But at least if you wanted to go, you'll find it here on the Google Maps area, and then I think that's the exact location. Someone pointed out to me, or if someone knows the coordinates, just place it there on the comments. You know how you're able to put the exact coordinates, and then Google Maps will take over right afterward. But if you do that, let me know. But yes, apparently this is its hiding place. If it still is there, even after all these years, then you can see this Riverside Bridge monster if you wanted to. Why would you want to go see it? I don't know. This is definitely something that is not a good experience. It's definitely a creature that seemed to be attacking certain individuals, but at least that's where its hideout seems to be, based on what I was able to track. But if anyone has any more info, anything else might have missed, please post those comments below. Anybody from that Riverside area heard more about the legends associated with this bridge monster? I was also reading other things tied to it. Apparently, whoever this creature is, there's also UFO sightings as well. So how about that? Maybe an aliens and UFOs video is in the mix with regards to this creature as well. So if anyone has any more info on that, then please post those comments below. One last thing I wanted to mention about Wetzel too, if you wanted to keep in the theme involving that name, not just Charles Wetzel's in terms of the name, but also a river. Apparently there's a Wetzel River. I tried to find the exact location. I couldn't tell if it was West Virginia or if it was North Carolina, but if there's a location there, that's apparently where this creature is too. And it likes the name Wetzel for whatever reason, and so that's where its other apparent hideout is. All right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care.